Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of WCM Fireside Chats. My name is Brian Searl here, as always, with Cara Braeutigam from the Canadian Camping and RV Council. Mr. Ben Quiggle is apparently on vacation, lost somewhere at some kind of gas station near the Grand Canyon where he can't get Wi-Fi. He said he was going to be here. He promised us he was going to be here. We promoted that he was going to do this awesome discovery that I really just made up and didn't run by him, but I committed him to it. And so I thought he'd be here, and he's having all kinds of issues because he doesn't have a hotspot on his phone. I really just think he's on vacation and doesn't care to join us.
He doesn't want
to? Yeah, that's what I really legitimately think it is. Wow. He just is too shy to say, or doesn't want to, I don't know. Anyway, so he's obviously—
hopefully he's watching.
If he's watching, he better be here. I feel like if his internet's good enough to watch, it should be good enough to be here. But as always, we are available on a podcast as well. Spotify, Google, iTunes, all the places. If you are on Facebook watching us on Woodall's or the Canadian Camping RV Council or Insider Perks or one of the pages, you can comment and we will see that. We'll put you up here, have a nice little discussion today. If you're in one of the groups watching, you can comment, but we can't see it, just so you're aware of that. So Mr. Ben Quiggle is obviously our news guy, editor of Woodall's, probably had a stack of things that we were going to talk about today, and now we have no idea where to take this news conversation, open discussion type thing. So, interesting.
Riley is contributing this week.
Yeah. Well, then my sink just started gurgling or something. I think there's some kind of monster in it or something. I'm in a 100-year-old cabin, so.
Ghosts.
Yeah. Definitely has to be at least 3 or 4 of them. So, okay.
Yeah.
So it is that time of year where we're kicking off the camping season. We've already done it in a lot of places, March, spring break, those kinds of places. But I think really some of the northern campgrounds, obviously up in Canada, Michigan, Wisconsin, places like that are really gearing up to start here April 1st, April 15th, that kind of thing. So tell us a little bit what's going on in Canada, Cara, while I frantically look at Woodall's trying to figure out what else to talk about.
Yeah, good. Thanks. So I think broadly our members here are really focused right now on kind of spring opening, trying to wrap their brains around what recent restrictions and stuff look like as they prepare to open for the season. There's, some positive in terms of, at this time last year, folks weren't able to open at all in most places. So there was, some loss of revenue, obviously, and things like that. We're still for sure being impacted by things like stay-at-home orders and stuff like that in lots of areas of this country. So
what's going on in Ontario? I didn't mean to interrupt you, but just we're having the conversation, right? Now I thought of something we can talk about.
Yay.
Ontario has this new stay-at-home order. How does it affect parks?
Well, so, they've got a stay-at-home order for 28 days. It sounds like if you have a seasonal lease agreement with a park, then you are able to visit your seasonal lot. Okay. So, that's great for our members who operate a business that way. Obviously, those overnight campsites are impacted by this dynamic. I'm sure it's going to be difficult kind of April and into May as those short-term stay sites aren't able to be rented. Yeah. So that's unfortunate. I think, they're seeing lots of number increases specific to these variants and things like that. So that's prompted this additional lockdown. I can't even remember how many I think it's the third round now. Ontario, I could be wrong there for sure. But that's impacting those shorter term stay parks. I think the seasonal, those of our members that are operating seasonal sites are, still prepping to open in the coming, whether some of them have opened already April 1st, but they're, doing whatever they can to make sure that their properties and their businesses are operating really safely and keeping everyone distanced and following any sort of public health requirements, specifically in Ontario. The dynamic is a little bit different in some of the other provinces right now. Here in Alberta specifically, our parks are able to open. We saw, our public parks sites, websites get flooded with reservations the kind of first couple of days that they open for those. So, I think folks are getting out to camp wherever possible. I have members here in Alberta who are, opening all of their facilities and are working closely with Alberta Health Services to make sure that they're following any guidelines specific to their business. So it really, really right now varies across the board, depending on your location, which has been the case for over a year now.
Yeah, for over a year. So I think we're used to it. Like by all intents and purposes, everything we're seeing down here in the States or whatever is good. Like, I mean, numbers are up. The people that we do, it's interesting. Like the people that we do marketing for, right? They always want that year over year, month over month comparison. Yeah. And so we've almost got to go back 2 years to see what it's like. It's so different.
Yeah, you can never measure 2020 against.
Right. Well, but especially now in the first 3 months of the year, because regardless of where you were, I mean, right now we're kind of coming out of it, right? In 2020, at the end of April was when everybody lifted the lockdowns initially here.
Right.
But when you're looking at year over year comparisons, how did March do against March? There's no way. And you can't even go back to 2019 because now everybody wants to get outside, which is fantastic for us, but that's still not an accurate year over year comparison. So everybody knows they're up, but we don't know how much. Are we doing good in marketing? I mean, there's people there, but is it my fault? I don't know. But
yeah, no, I completely imagine it really complicates your profession specifically. I think, it's just this crazy anomaly. We're going to look back at, charts and data 10 years from now and see those big spikes. And, I think there's so many factors contributing to how the industry is performing right now. And, you're right. We're in a good position compared to a lot of other industries. So it's tough to complain about, but it'd be lovely to have a good grasp of exactly what's causing these specific issues in certain areas, but it's impossible, I think.
Yeah, it's clear it's up almost everywhere. Like I can't think of a client who's down. I mean, like it's very easy to prove that marketing's working overall. It's just that year over year, like you're looking at, like, why am I up, or how much am I up, or is this,
and how do I replicate this and continue this and make sure to be able to maintain this momentum, or at least not lose all of the momentum as we move into the future. So
because that's a huge unknown, right? Like obviously there's all these new people who have bought our RVs, who continue to buy RVs, who are enjoying the outdoors, who love this stuff. Does that stick though? Like, I mean, obviously some of them will. If you've obviously bought $120,000 or $500,000 or whatever priced RV, you're committed for a little bit anyway. But if you're tenting or camping or discovering glamping for the first time, like, does that stick? And I feel like it will for a lot of people, but I also feel like it's case by case specific, depending on the area, your campground, what experience you're offering, how services you provide, how you follow, like same thing as it always is, right? Reviews. How you communicate, but I feel like a lot of people don't understand that.
Well, and I think, you and I've talked about this lots before, specifically about how this whole, despite how terrible this kind of global scenario is, it's really motivated folks to kind of change things up and do unique, cool stuff that in a lot of cases really bettering their businesses and improving the level of customer service and how they're interacting with their guests and all those things, which, will the appetite for those things remain after, maybe things transition closer to normal again? It's going to be interesting to watch how this stuff impacts all of us going forward, for sure.
I think it's a huge opportunity. And this is what we've told clients, right? Like, you've got people coming into the outdoors, but are you going, like, it's very easy to treat them like they expect to be treated and thus convert them into long-term campers, right?
Campers.
It's basically people who like the outdoors, especially with cabins and glamping.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very much going to be a case by case, person by person basis. But I think if enough people are doing the right things, which I feel like they are, then it's very easy to open somebody's eyes long term, especially as COVID. It's going to continue, right? obviously vaccines are going to help us and all those kinds of things, and numbers are going to hopefully continue to go down as they are in the States and all those kinds of things. But
it's here. It's here to stay.
Right, it's here. And so I think, but what I'm saying is I think it's almost a good thing, right? The longer that COVID sticks around in whatever form or fashion it is, obviously we don't want anybody to get sick, we don't want anybody to die, nobody's saying that. But if you, and obviously it's not easy to discount those things, but if you put those aside for a second and just look at the fact that it's forced everybody outside and into the outdoors and those kinds of things, I think the longer that it sticks around, the longer that behavior becomes more permanent for the consumer.
Yeah, well, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's almost given us this big kind of collective wake-up call where we were all just, I feel this majorly in my own life, where I was just kind of in this rat race, like work, get all the things done, drive all the kids to all the sports and the places. And we were overscheduled to the nines. And, you know, it was just this constant demanding pull. And suddenly I got this slap upside the head to where I was like, you know, give your head a shake. There are more important things here in your life than all this crap that you're focusing or prioritizing. And yeah, get outside, prioritize your mental health, you know, schedule free time with your kids and go camp and do all of these things. I really think that's going to be a long-term thing for a lot of people. They're going to hang on to that and remember that jolt and that wake-up call long into the future. At least I hope so.
Well, we're seeing that a little bit with our clients too. Like,
I bet.
And you used to own a campground. Like, everybody feels like, I think, that they need to do everything all the time, everywhere for their business. And there's this hesitancy with businesses in general, but obviously I'm speaking from the fact that we work with so many campgrounds. Specifically, but there's a hesitancy to outsource, to trust anybody to do anything, to pay the money that it costs versus you doing it yourself. But I think that part of this shift, at least for us, has been there's been more people willing to open their eyes to some of the technology that, yes, we could do for them, but they can also do for themselves that help them save some of that time to go outside and be with their kids and their family and not spend as much time stressing over their business. And I mean, it's always going to be there, right? It's always your business. I'm a business owner too. But if you can carve out more of that time for your family, for your friends to de-stress, I mean, it's better. And some of this technology is crazy how awesome and efficient it can be.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think it's one of the things that really has positively it's been a positive repercussion of all of this. It's really forced a ton of change that we simply, a lot of us wouldn't have, you know, chosen to make those changes tough and scary. And if things are kind of mostly working, why bother changing them?
Well, that's how change usually works, right? You got to be forced into it. So
totally. Yeah. And I think, I know, you know, speaking as a campground owner, I think I 100% was guilty of, like, you know, my park was full. Reservations were coming in, you know, we had events and all these great things going on all the time. Like, I didn't have this motivation to make changes because things were going well. You know, my business was thriving. We were in a great position. There wasn't an underlying fire there to change or edit things because status quo worked well for everybody.
Right. And so that's what we've, and it's exacerbated right now because of the pandemic a little bit, but that's what we've seen. And I'm just I'm talking about marketing because I don't, like, Quiggle's the news guy. So let's just help people with marketing a little bit. But that's what I know. I don't, you know, I read the Woodall's headlines, but I don't, like, absorb them like Quiggle does every day. So, but
and it's a free episode this week. We can talk about whatever we want, right?
Well, that's true. I mean, but I think I posted on Facebook, we were going to talk about news, and then Quiggle's some kind of discovery thing that I made up for him.
Yeah, I'm really disappointed he didn't show for this. I really wanted to hear about it.
I know. So
anyway, I cut you off.
I even prepared a little video that I was going to poke fun at him and his discoveries and stuff. So maybe we'll play that later anyway.
I feel like we really should. Yeah.
But so, from a marketing standpoint, what are we talking about? We're talking about embracing.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Embracing change. How, you know, the status quo
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's been historically the one of the issues that we've had challenge with marketing, like trying to push people toward new technologies and embrace things, is because you've seen, I mean, you go back all the way back to the 60s, 50s, 60s, when, you know, franchise camping was first starting out and stuff like that.
Right.
And you've got billboards through all those years. You've got magazine ads, you've got print ads and rat cards, and these things historically have worked, and they still do work to a certain extent. But people don't realize the opportunity on the other end. Like, if I do more, then I can increase by X percentage, because the people who drive by their park, who are Googling because they're not on Google, or looking on Facebook because they don't post on social or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Or clicking their competitor's ad because they're not on Google.
Mm-hmm.
They're not waving or calling the park and be like, hey, I'm going down the street to your competitor. So you don't really know what you're missing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is okay. Like, you can be happy with flat or up 3%. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of people don't realize what the potential is.
Yeah, there's so many metrics that are almost impossible to measure. And I think, you know, I was talking with some campground owners specifically about this stuff last week, because, you know, I think there's often this appetite to kind of hang on to the way things have been done because they worked, but a lot of times they miss the concept that our consumers are changing the way that they want to absorb information. Consumers don't want to seek out a campground guide necessarily, or pay attention to a billboard on a highway as they would have in the past. Like, the way consumers are receiving information is changing, and the way they want to, you know, things like having your website really mobile responsive and things like that. I mean, the majority of our guests are searching for properties on a mobile device, and if your website doesn't load properly on a mobile device, I mean, I don't know. Personally, I'm gonna, like, I can't click the button. I'm not going there. I'm gonna call the campground whose phone button works, right? So anyways, I think often we see campgrounds, like I said, kind of in that status quo because it's worked all this time, and why fix what ain't broke kind of thing. But I agree, this diversification, this ability to really pay attention to what your consumers want from you, and not just, you know, your same old regulars all the time who already know about you, but like you said, or accessing portions of the market that you never would have otherwise. And I think too, using the tools that you talk about all the time, Google and Facebook and all of those things, provide this unique ability to, you know, in the old days, my campground, even, we used to pay to have brochures printed and would distribute them in the province of Alberta, you know, in the mail or whatever, like in the good old days. But again, you get no analytics or ability to measure the performance of that investment the way that you can with, you know, these amazing tools that are available to your businesses now. And I think that's incredibly valuable, to be able to pay attention to, you know, how many eyeballs are converting to bookings and all of those things. That's worth the investment, the advertising investment, in my opinion, alone.
Well, that's the easiest way I found to explain it. Like, we used to teach classes on this back when the world was normal and we were all in person.
Right.
But one of the things I would frequently pull out of my toolbox, or the easiest way I had to explain to people, is it's all about attention. Everything is about attention. And so it's not that billboards don't work anymore. It's not that magazine articles don't work, or radio or TV or rat cards in the rest areas or whatever. Like, these things still are being picked up. They're just not being picked up and seen as much as they used to. And so now you've got this ability, and you've had it for 10 plus years with Google Analytics and stuff like that. But as we continue to evolve some of this technology, you've got the ability to see how much attention am I getting for what I'm spending. Even on a billboard, you can put a call tracking phone number up there. Even in a magazine ad, if you still want to do that, you can put a call tracking number there. How many phone calls did I get? This brochure that's sitting in a rat card that, I mean, you can get as intricate and detailed as you want, right? Like, here's the phone number that I'm only going to use for the rest stop off of this highway on this place. Okay, and so I'm going to know, do I drive 20 miles out of my way to put it in this rest area or just the other rest area? So So you can really get granular and specific in some of this stuff. And what it ends up being, at least in my mind, is all of us have a limited budget, right? Nobody's got unlimited money, because if you did, you're buying a Super Bowl ad.
Yeah.
Or what is it, hockey up in Canada?
Come on, we watched the Super Bowl too.
Hockey? Is there a Super Bowl of hockey? Or?
The Stanley Cup.
All right. Is that, I mean, I don't know if there's any, it's the Stanley Cup. Okay. So,
yeah. Okay. Yeah. But we also, us Canadians, watch the Super Bowl. Okay. Half of us watch it just for the ads.
I know. All right. I know. I'm not saying you don't. I'm just wondering if there's not another market opportunity in addition to the Super Bowl. But
yeah, the Grey Cup. We have, we've got some things. Buy an ad if you have unlimited dollars.
Yeah, but most of us don't, and so that's the point. Is you need to, as a small business owner, wherever you are, campground, lawyer, accountants, whoever you are, you need to be purchasing the most attention that you can for the least amount of dollars possible. And so that billboard could be anywhere from $300 a month to, I've seen billboards at $5,000 a month, US, depending on what area you're in. Yeah. How many people drive past it, but 95% of those people who drive past it don't care about camping.
Yeah.
They're not interested. And if they are interested in camping or they like the outdoors, they're probably not looking to stay that night. And so what is your return on investment for that billboard? If it's $300 a month, sure, do it. I mean, it's right.
Yeah.
But same thing with all of your other marketing. And if you can reach 10,000 people on Facebook a day who you know for certain like camping, because Facebook's super creepy and stalks everybody and knows that stuff. Why wouldn't you want to reach those 10,000 people versus maybe you're going to reach 5 who are looking to stay and go camping a day?
Maybe. And you have no idea how to track those 5. Like maybe you'll reach 5, maybe you'll reach 100, but who knows?
We've got Darlene Oswald here from the BC Campground and Lodging Owners Association. Is that right?
BC Lodging and Campgrounds Association, yeah.
Oh, so I just put owners in there, but it's full of owners anyway. I feel like it's the same.
I mean, yeah, sure.
I changed your name, Darlene. I'm sorry. She says there's still a lot of campgrounds that don't have a web presence. I've seen members have 300 check-ins. Never taken the time to have a website, like you said. Brian, they're so old school and think credit cards are the only thing and it hides the rest of it. But let's see.
Are the only thing that they need.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, I mean, again, I was guilty of that too in my early days where like the park was full. And
what were your early days? What year are we talking about here?
My early days, 2007, 2008, 2009.
Wow,
those were my early days.
That's so long ago.
I know. Listen, you don't have to tell me. But in those early days, we had kind of taken over this business that, didn't have a computer in the office yet and things like that. So certainly weren't utilizing the tools. I mean, 07, 08, 09, Facebook was brand new and we all just used it to post what we did that day. So these kinds of tools and things didn't specifically exist then, but it was an interesting and fast, 5 years that transitioned to suddenly having a ton of different tools at your fingertips, right? And I think, maybe because I was so fresh at it at that time, I was a bit more receptive to that change. But it's daunting, and we don't all know about how Google Ads work and how Facebook works and whatever else. That's why we need insider perks. And, I think it's telling which campgrounds are capable or more receptive to that change because of, them reaching out to companies like yours to partner with and utilize the services that you guys offer and take that off their plates, right? It's certainly worth the investment.
Well, even if you do it yourself, right? There's some things like I would never tell a campground owner unless they had a marketing background to do Google Ads themselves, because it's like even for an agency, like it's one of the most complicated things that we do. Like every single morning, I'm in all of our clients making tweaks to Google Ads, and I know agencies who charge retainers in LA of $50,000 a year who actually work with campgrounds. who set up Google Ads campaigns and don't touch them for maybe once a month. Yeah, or a year or longer, right? I mean, there's not the LA agency, but yeah, there's lots of people who set it up once, even park owners. And they don't have any idea how it's working or what it's doing or whether it's paying off, but somebody told them to run Google Ads, and so they're doing it. But in most cases, you're probably wasting money if you don't know what you're doing. And the fascinating thing is, to me, it's like, I understand if I'm coming to you and you don't know me or somebody else is and saying, well, you got to do Google Ads, right?
Right.
Prove it to me. Well, but I can't. And then when I show you some people the data, they still are very, very hesitant and don't want to do anything. Like, we've got a campground in the States down here that I was just looking at their numbers last week. We had a conference call with them. It's a big Jellystone park. And they've got a large budget on Google Ads, but I want to say in the last 7 days, they spent maybe $1,800 on Google Ads, which is a lot of money, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But it took me probably 4 years to get them to that point where they would trust me enough with a budget like that, because
40, wait.
Four.
Oh, I was like, wow.
I'm a young professional. Okay?
Yeah, I was going to say.
I'm not one of those old people who owned campgrounds in 2008. I'm a young person still.
Right.
So,
how nice for you.
Yeah. So what was this? Oh, so no, we can prove the numbers, right? So like you're like, I can show this park, this Jellystone, through a combination of, they use CampSpot, right? But it works with other software too. Through the reservations that are being taken from CampSpot, because I can actually, like, when you make a reservation on CampSpot online, CampSpot in the code underneath will feed, will allow me to see, or analytics or Google Analytics to see how much money that person spent, what site type they reserved, who they are, all those kinds of things. And then I can take that and pull it into a report for you. And obviously CampSpot can do that too, but I can show you from a marketing standpoint.
Right.
So who came from Google free search and how much did they spend in the last 7 days? Yeah. I can show you that from Yelp, from Facebook, from Good Sam, from all the places, from my blurry camera that keeps automatically focusing on me. And so what I'm saying is like, you look at this park that spent $1,800 on Google Ads, it sounds crazy, except I can directly translate, in the last 7 days, they spent $1,800. I can directly translate $49,000 in revenue that came from those Google Ads.
Yeah.
That's like a 25, like for every dollar you're spending, you're getting, I don't know what, $25 back. And I can show you that, like, I can prove it to you, and you still won't let me spend the money. Right.
Yeah. It's interesting because we campground owners often have a tough time. I shouldn't speak for all of us. I can relate to this feeling like I have my best interests at heart. You know, I'm going to make the best choices for myself. So I'm going to kind of hang on to the reins pretty tight. That was my experience. I think certainly for several years, my perception of that stuff did change and shift over time. But I mean, that stuff is incredibly valuable. There's no way to translate, a rack card analytics to that kind of measurement. I mean, you couldn't. There's no way to tell. I mean, it blows my mind.
And I understand why campground owners are hesitant, right? Because there's a lot of marketing people or the kid down the street who says they can do something or whatever that have told them and promised them the sun, the moon, the stars, and they can't deliver. And so this is part of the reason, like, we try to educate campground owners, right? Like, I'm on shows like this, I'm doing videos on Facebook, I've got all kinds of things on websites. Like, I'll have an hour-long phone call with somebody who's not a client who never talks to me again, because I want, and we do it for our clients too, because I want to educate them. I want them to understand, like, you don't need to know how to do Google Ads. You don't need to know how to be an expert at social or do things with voice search that I know how to do. Like, you can, but what I want you to do is be dangerous enough with that stuff that when somebody like me tries to sell you on something or tell you they can do something, you know what questions to ask to determine if they're full of shit.
Sure.
Can we say shit? Is this a censored show? Is that allowed?
I feel like you just did. So
I did. So we'll see if we get a note from the FCC later or something like that.
Yeah, we'll see. Time will tell. No, I think, these are incredibly valuable business tools that frankly, we just don't all have the kind of knowledge required to operate them in those ideal ways that really provide great business tools. You can use so much of that data to make future decisions and strategize, and it's incredibly valuable. Ryan's asking, do you ever find campground owners that still heavily rely on print only? So I will say, like I mentioned, the campground that I owned when we took over from my ex-husband's family, there was no computer. We took every reservation with pen and paper, actually pencil, and a ledger book, and used a lot of erasers. And the majority of the reservations, I mean, the phone rang off the hook all the time. They did have an established website at that time, but otherwise, we're really relying on things like the printed Alberta Campground Guide, any sort of rat card distribution that we did ourselves, for kind of word of mouth. And also, frankly, the park had been open for 25 years already. So there's this foundation of established reputation and, return customers and things like that, that obviously keep a business like that really going after so many years of kind of successful operations and things like that. But it's really interesting to come across parks now so that's a long way of saying, I think a lot of parks have transitioned to doing things more technologically advanced, but there certainly still are those parks that really rely on kind of their old-fashioned, I hate calling it that. I think, they, like I said before, they're doing things because it works for them. And when
Which
you talk,
nothing wrong with, like, if you're happy with that, great. But what I don't want is for somebody to call me on the phone and complain that they were only up 2% when they don't have online booking and they don't have a mobile responsive website and they're not on Google and they never touch Facebook because of whatever. That's what I don't want. Like, if you're happy, cool. Great. Like, no judgment. Like, do whatever you want to do and relax and live your life and be up 2% every year and
congratulations.
But if you're going to complain, be willing to do something about it.
Yeah. Well, and I think oftentimes when you talk to business owners that are choosing to operate in that way, they kind of say, like, our customer base values that about us. And so I think,
and some of your customers do. Some.
Yeah, I think it's important to cater to those individuals who would prioritize spending their dollars in a park that maybe doesn't, have as technologically advanced processes and things like that. But I do think it's really, really important to pay attention to the way the market is changing and how trends are going and, what your potential future customers are going to look like. And I
don't think it's a one or the other either, right?
No,
I think there's it's a lot of black and white between owners who are like, well, I still want to have this personal service. Well, you can do that with technology. Like, you can have both of the things. You can still talk to people on the phone. You can, like, if you put live chat on your website, like, you can still be personal with people. You can talk to them. You can vet them. You can give them great customer service. It's not a one or the other. It's a why wouldn't you appeal to the whole market instead of just holding on to the nostalgia. So.
I was talking to a campground owner the other day who texts her guests kind of during their stay, before they check in, and her guests often think that stuff is automated, but she and her staff are kind of, they pay attention to, specifics about each guest. They really personalize it where they can. I think that's a great example of, utilizing something really efficient to establish this cool connection with guests who are kind of like, wow, you maybe are connecting in a disconnected way, but still it really demonstrates that she really cares about her guests and what their experience is like
in the customer service. Like, that'll blow people away. They'll leave a great review about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, you go to the hotel and you get the phone call, like, right after you walk in the room. You're like, oh, do they have a camera? And they see I just walked in here. They're like, hey, how's your room? I mean, it's impressive that they, because you're just used to a lot of businesses not caring, or you not thinking that they cared, I should say.
Well, and I think that's not even a conscious thing almost. I think we just all kind of go about our day-to-day functions. And I know in my case, like, I don't think I'm really that important. So like, call me and ask me how my room is. And I'm kind of like, wow, that's really sweet. Right. And I think, those small little touches are easy ways to both use the technology, but kind of just personalize it quite a bit, which is so valuable. Ryan saying, I agree with you 100%. If a website or mobile version gives me trouble, I jump off and move on to the next company or business. I hate that I think that way, but it's just all about how long and how many steps you take the customer on. So that's me too. I really, again, that's a subconscious thing for me where I, I'll jump off of a reservation website, even for a hotel. If I can't easily find buttons and book a thing right now or pretty quickly, I'm like, no, I'm not even gonna go down the rabbit hole, and I leave. And I've caught myself afterwards being like, wow, I probably could have given that business more of a chance.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So, and I think that's just indicative of kind of how much time we spend on these electronic devices and how much time we are willing to give to like something taking our attention before we shift off to something we feel is kind of more efficient or whatever. Joe from Pathfinder Camp Resorts here, 3 locations in Canada. Appreciate the great discussion. Thank you. Thanks for watching, Joe. He's going to sign off. Hope to catch the rest later. Yeah, please watch the recording on Facebook or check us out on all the podcast places.
It's on YouTube too, I think. We got to get it on the Canadian Camping and RV Council.
We really do. I have that on my to-do list and keep skipping over it. So we should sort that out ASAP. But
all right, so let's do this. You were going to finish the thought before I change gears for a second?
No, don't think so. Okay. Couldn't have been that important.
Well, I just made you forget whatever it was. So
it's all good.
So here, let's do this. Let's give people. We're gonna poke fun a little bit at Quiggle because he's not here for a second.
Right on.
And then after that, as a teaser, we'll come back and what we'll do is we'll go through the things that you should have on your list for marketing wise to prep for your park that you can do yourself without hiring me or anybody else. Cool. And then we'll talk about some of the geeky things that I've been doing recently for clients so you can kind of see what's possible. Not that only I can do, but you could do too if you research it and read about you, because I will never sell myself. So let's do that. Does that sound like a plan?
Yeah, I love it.
Talk about like what you thought about from a campground owner's perspective and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So we put in the comments for many of you who have seen this about Mr. Quiggle. I committed him to like this. He was in the Grand Canyon. He went on vacation. He drove all the way from Michigan. He lives in Michigan. I'm not sure. Like he's not here to defend himself. So it may
we can say whatever we want.
Yeah, it might be the first time that he's ever been outside Michigan. He may not have even known there was the United States of America outside the border of Michigan and Indiana. He did live in Indiana. So
I do know that it is his first time at the Grand Canyon.
First time at the Grand Canyon? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I feel like he thought that the Grand Canyon existed, but maybe it was a mythical place before he got there. And he didn't. So I don't know. Anyway, so he went all the way to the Grand Canyon. I think he was touring some of the Rocky Mountain areas on the West Coast, those kinds of places with his family. I was looking at, I didn't look at his pictures, but I saw a couple of his posts on Facebook. And so it looks like he's having a good time. But one of the reasons I posted kind of like a teaser in the Facebook, where I can't remember what I said. What did I say? He discovered like a secret Egyptian tomb in the Grand Canyon or something like that, right? Yeah.
Which
is cool, right? Like I thought, I mean, that would be cool for him to share. Like I thought it was a legitimate thing because he said he went hiking down in the Grand Canyon and he saw all kinds of cool things. So obviously, when you hear anybody say I discovered cool things, you immediately think they discovered an
Egyptian tomb. Yeah. Yes. First thought. Yeah.
So I assumed that's what we were going to get to hear about. But he's not here, and he said he's on vacation. And so what I have done though is there was a comment, right? I think it was in the RV professional group. Somebody commented and said I was in the Grand Canyon a few years ago or something, and I didn't see an Egyptian tomb, and so they were questioning.
Shocking.
So I'm
shocked.
Out. I know. So I've actually gone out, and I've got. This is not from the Grand Canyon. This is from one of Quiggle's other adventures. Because he's actually, if you don't know, Quiggle is an archaeologist. He's kind of like a modern day Indiana Jones.
Wow.
He only does Woodall's on the side. So, and again, he's not here
Quiggle
to,
just
he's not here
never
to dispute
ceases to
this.
amaze me.
Yeah, I mean, he's a fantastic guy, like all kinds of skills. So I've unearthed this video of why, and this is kind of an answer to this guy's comment why he didn't see it in the Grand Canyon too, because Quiggle works the same way. He's got the same kind of operational methods everywhere he goes. And so this video is just really quick. It explains to you why you will never find what Quiggle actually found. So we'll watch this and then we'll come back with a little bit of marketing stuff.
Can't wait.
All right, so I think
That explains a lot.
Right. So this is what I feel like probably basically happened in the Grand Canyon. Quiggle made this amazing discovery of an Egyptian tomb, but there was some kind of either remote or contraption or hidden door, and it's disappeared now. It's gone forever again.
Yeah, well, that's a real shame. I mean,
a lot of historical things that are waiting to be discovered that only Ben Quiggle has seen across the world, which is why it's so valuable. It's why he's on the show, why we have his regular commentary. Like, he has so much insight and so much value to bring to the world, right? I mean, imagine like when we could solve this like longevity thing, right? We could live to be 200, 300 years old if science advances enough, right? Whatever. Like, I'm going to live 300 years as long as I can be healthy. Anyway, imagine like Quiggle as an archaeologist living 300-400 years and uncovering like historic campsites, like the first KOA or something like that, like digging with his little brush in Billings. It'd be interesting. So,
would it be?
Probably not. But I'm trying to give Quiggle props here. Okay, he's not here to defend himself. We're trying to talk about him, all that kind of stuff. All right. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about marketing. And he really should have been here to see this stuff. But anyway. So if
Make
you're a
sure they're
campground, it's April. Well, really any time of the year, right? There are a couple things that you need to be doing to make sure that you're set up in the most appropriate way to obviously serve the guests that you already have, but the guests who are looking online and involved, especially these new guests, right, with COVID and stuff like that. So, and maybe I'm going to miss something. We'll talk about it. You can jump in, Cara, and tell me all those kinds of things. So obviously, in my mind, number one is your Google presence, right? Because this is where people are searching. They're finding like whatever website they're going to. If they're going to Rover Pass or Good Sam or Woodall's or however they're finding your campground, you can go to business.google.com. So business.google.com. It's free. And if you have not claimed your Google listing, which is where your map marker is located and all those kinds of things, your address and that kind of stuff, you can do that for free. They'll probably mail you a postcard to your campground, or in some cases, you can just do it very quickly with a phone call verification. And then you have a lot of control over that listing now. It's that, like, when you Google your own campground, if you see that box pop up on the right-hand side that says the name of your campground and has your photos and your address and driving directions and all those kinds of things underneath it, your reviews.
Yep.
This is what you can control by taking that one little step that's completely free. And then you have a dashboard that you can log into where you can upload photos that you've taken to make sure you have your best side, where you can answer those reviews, where you can make sure your map marker and driving directions and all kinds of things are correct. And people are often surprised by, like, we deal with campgrounds in northern Michigan who are in the middle of nowhere who get, even in the off season, 2,000 plus people looking at their Google My Business listing. And you can see that stuff. And so the amount of people whose eyeballs are on this, like, if you're not controlling in some facet how people are perceiving your park, maybe they're still coming, but there's probably people that you could get in addition to the people who are already coming.
Absolutely. Well, and it shocks me actually how sometimes Google's information is really
inaccurate.
I remember, again, aging myself, I don't know, 2009, 2010, in a back and forth battle with Google to replace my or repair my PIN that was, directing my customers to a place far from where my park actually was. So that was a battle. So it's great that you have that ability now to claim the listing and really control those things. It gives you a ton of autonomy, I think, which is really valuable.
Yeah. So that, obviously, Google's super popular. Like, we'll just stick on listings for a second, right? You can do the same thing on Bing. People forget about Bing. It's definitely not as widely used as Google is, but there's still, like, the last data I saw on it was like somewhere between 20 and 30% of people actually use Bing. And that audience actually tends to skew toward a higher income, older demographic.
Which is interesting.
Which is basically what campground owners want for the most part. So you can go on, I don't know the link off the top of my head, but you can Google it. It's the same thing. It's called Bing Places, and you can claim your listing, do the same thing with a postcard or a phone number verification or whatever.
I'm curious. Wait, did they have an explanation for why the demographic?
I think when I originally read it, and I can't remember, wasn't there a point in time where Apple had Bing as a default search on their phone?
You're asking the wrong girl. I don't know.
I think there was at some point, but anyway, I haven't read too deep into the explanation why, and maybe that's changed. I haven't looked at it for a couple of years.
Okay.
But either way, it's cheap.
Sorry. Yeah, so absolutely. More eyes.
Yeah, to claim it takes 10 minutes, maybe a little bit longer if you have to wait on a postcard or something like that. But then you can just go in and upload photos. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's all free. It doesn't cost you anything, and you can have a presence there. The other one is Apple Maps. Very few people realize this, but I think it's mapsconnect.apple.com. Free too. You can control how you appear in Apple Maps across millions and millions and millions of iPhones and iPads and Macs all across the world. And you can do the very same thing. You just verify your business, and there's not quite as many controls over Apple as there is on Google, but you can upload a couple photos, and you can make sure your information and your map marker is correct.
Nice.
This is used by a lot of people. Like, I remember when I was starting my company, we were traveling around 2010 to 14, something like that, like frequently.
Decades ago.
Decades. No, this is young. do that. Like this, we're talking about the double digits, the 10, 11,
Right.
not
right.
the 8s and 9s, Cara. Come on now. But yeah, we would look on Apple Maps, and even just local businesses who you would think like restaurants and stuff, that just they weren't accurate. Like would take us to the wrong place or take us down the wrong road or whatever. And we were traveling to campgrounds at the time, but it wasn't just campgrounds. And
Right.
so it's important to like, you just don't want a frustrated guest who
No.
arrives to your park pissed because they spent like 20 minutes trying to figure out the maps and the route around. Then they're already angry at you. Then they're looking for all the things that are wrong with your park that they wouldn't have otherwise looked at if they arrived with a smile on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So those are probably the three. Those are probably the three big ones for listing wise. I mean, obviously, and then you talk about social media, right? You want to have your Facebook page set up. So many people still like if you think that you don't have a Facebook page, you're wrong. You don't need to create one for your business. Facebook will create it for you. And they will let people leave reviews, and they will let people leave comments, and things are being said about you that you don't know. So you can stick your foot in the ground and say, I don't like social media and I'm not going to be on it for whatever reason, but you're still on it. So you might as well control it. Like you don't have to play the game. It's okay. Like you don't have to be on Facebook. Like either hire somebody to do it or, I mean, at least clean it up and then ignore it, right? But at least make sure the proper address is there and your phone number and driving directions, and some photos of your park.
Absolutely agree.
Because I feel like nobody should argue with me that people are using Facebook to do research and things that relate to camping.
A little bit.
So like, again, it's free. It doesn't cost you anything, but your time, a little bit of time. But there's really no, like, it's okay to have principles. Nobody's saying that. Like, if it wasn't for my business, I probably wouldn't be on Facebook at all.
Right. Yeah.
I don't really post on my personal profile ever. So a couple times here and there I share stuff, but that's it. I think I went like 7 years without posting from 2010 to whatever. So crazy.
That's awesome. Wow.
Sorry, dog. So okay. So Facebook, social media, Instagram obviously is your secondary option past that, which is owned by Facebook, kind of the same thing. Make sure you have an Instagram created. And then that's really that's all you need, honestly. Like if you want to get into more of social media or take a more advanced strategy, then you can do things like, depending on your audience, Snapchat and TikTok and Pinterest and Twitter and whatever else. But really for most campgrounds, the basics are Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah. It's a great way to like visually showcase your park, provide, like you said, really accurate, specific information about your park, contact information, all those things. And then, it's just sits there if you don't want to.
Right, that's it. Like at least go on Instagram, log in, post 5 photos in the same 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then at least, like, even if you look like you're not active on social, at least there's a way for people to find you and look at like the 5 most beautiful photos that you ever thought were taken of your campground, and they'd be amazed. And they'll, even if they're not booking right away, then they're maybe they're looking for your website or your Google listing or something else that's happening and going on, and making a booking or giving you a call or whatever. You put your phone number in Instagram. Right?
Absolutely.
Ways for people to find you.
These are free and easy ways to add exposure, diversity to your business plan.
Yeah. So website then, obviously we didn't talk about your website, but most people have websites, which is why I didn't start off with that, right? So you talked about making it mobile responsive and all those kinds of things. It's not about mobile friendly. Like you remember when we used to have the M.dot websites that were totally separate and totally different? It's not that anymore.
No.
Like you need to and I haven't really seen a campground who has an M.dot in years.
No.
But responsive simply means like it stretches and grows to whatever screen you're on. So when people say responsive, they usually think mobile. But if you do a responsive website right, it'll stretch to your 60-inch television in your room, or a billboard in Times Square or wherever, right? It'll just stretch and shrink and adapt to whatever's coming. And so by having a responsive website, you're ready for almost anything that comes screen size wise.
It's so valuable. People are consuming their stuff in so many different ways now. It's incredibly valuable.
Yeah, I mean, just to be available and to again, not to have somebody struggle with you, to be able to click the call, to do whatever, just to have that responsive website. And you got to make sure, like, here's one of the biggest misconceptions we have. Like, you can design a pretty website. Like,
Sure.
it's very easy. Like,
Yep.
right? You can hire a kid down the street who just got out of college for $250 and they can design you a pretty website.
Yep.
The problem is that most people think that's all that needs done. When the pretty website design is literally only consumer facing.
Right.
And 75% of the success on the internet is really how Google interprets it, how fast your website loads, what your SEO looks like, where you rank, all the things that are in the background that geeks like me do.
Right.
And you can learn these things too. Of course you can. All of the things that I do can be done for free. It's just time is money, right? Yeah. Well, most of the things can be free, but well, I mean, just like Google Ads obviously is going to charge you, right? So
sure. Yeah.
But like knowing that these things exist and being in control of them, like just if it takes 10 seconds to read like the top 10 things you should be paying attention to on your website. Just Google it. I don't even know what's going to come up, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be an article that talks about making sure it's pretty, of course, making sure it's responsive, making sure it loads fast, okay, which means two things. You have to pay for your website to be hosted somewhere that's more than $5 a month.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry, you've just got to spend money.
Yeah.
And then you have to have a website developer who actually knows how to not load like a 10 megabyte image on your homepage that they haven't actually optimized for the web.
Right.
That, you know, because you've all been on those websites, right? Where you load a website and you'll see like the top of the image and then bloop, 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 bloop. You're like,
slow and steady.
Come on, let's go. But you sit there and wait. Well, most people will just leave. But so it impacts.
People don't wait.
No. And so it impacts the customer staying on your website, making a reservation, but it also impacts what Google sees and how they rank you, because Google very much wants fast websites, because Google wants people happy with Google search results. Google's in it for Google.
Yeah.
The faster your website is, the higher they rank it, because they know the user is going to have a good experience on your website, which is a win-win for everybody, you and Google and the consumer.
Yeah.
So Google is very much focused on user experience, and speed is one of those things. But it's the easiest low-hanging fruit to do. And then, you know, what would you want on a website? Like, I mean, we have hedge funds we work with who want pop-ups as soon as somebody loads on the website, and I have to talk them out of it. Like, if you were using a website, would you want to load a website and be like, oh, that's a beautiful pop-up right in front of you? Like, I can't see anything. What am I doing? What am I looking at? I don't care if you're offering me a 10% coupon. Leave me alone. I wanted to see the beautiful image I was looking at. I wanted to figure out where I'm going or look at your menu or whatever.
Yeah. Pop-ups can feel very kind of salesy, which I think a lot of people get turned off by.
And it's not to say that there's not a place for them. Like, you can have a banner that comes in on the bottom, or something that floats up on the right-hand side, or like all kinds of different things. But popping up something right in front of your face, it's not something that you would want. So why would you want to put it in front of your guests? That principle should apply to everything that you're doing on your website. Ease of navigation, what pages are viewed, what information you're providing, all those kinds of. If you were going camping, what information would you want? Put that on your website.
Yeah, well, and that's sometimes, I'll speak as a campground owner again, sometimes we get removed from that. Where
sure, of course you do, because you're running your business.
Yeah, and I don't ever get to go camping when I was a campground owner. Like,
well, now you do. You're old and retired.
Yeah, exactly. But back in those days, I was a bit removed from that. So it's really about kind of knowing what your customers want from you, and you know what kind of information is valuable to you. I really relied on stuff like my front desk staff who were on the phone answering questions all the time. You know, what things are folks constantly asking when they call? We can be showcasing that stuff on the website and saving them that phone call. Or, you know, shortening the phone call to, hey, I already have all this great information. I just want to book now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, answer their questions in advance. It's easier for everybody. So,
yeah.
But and again, and then that's just the basics, right? Like, and we're running out of time. Like, I have got a full schedule. I'm sure you do too. we don't want to stay on for too long. But some of the more advanced things that you can do beyond that, right? Like from the basics of adding more websites, but web pages, right? Like we were talking about, based on what your customers are asking or things of that nature, to providing things like local area attractions, to providing things like your event listings. Like we've got a client that we're working with now. We put a super fancy event plugin on their website where the manager can update it, and the guests can RSVP for events in advance. And so it keeps track of that. They can sell tickets, they can do whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it lists all the events in Google search. So you can actually see the events, and it shows up in schema. So if a local person's looking for an Easter egg hunt or something, they're like, oh, cool, this campground does it. Yeah. You can charge the public for tickets. Like,
love it.
So things like that, right? I mean, those are the basics. But if you've got a website designer who wants to charge you $200, $400, $600 to add a page to your website, you're like, either A, you need to pay them because it's worth it, like in certain select instances for events and local attractions, or you need to find somebody who is more in line with what you want to accomplish. That doesn't mean that this person's wrong. Doesn't mean I'm right. I'm not saying that. What I mean is if you want to accomplish providing more services to your guests, and you're being stopped because you don't want to spend $200 on an extra page, then you need to do it differently.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely agree. No,
and if that means adding the page yourself and figuring out how to do it, okay, do it. Like Google a training video in WordPress or whatever your website's built in and add your own page. It doesn't have to look perfect or fancy.
That's how I learned WordPress, was building my campgrounds website. I mean, I didn't build it in the initial form, but yeah, in order to kind of not have to wait to add information and all of that stuff, I was like, I'm going to learn this myself, and so I can update my own stuff, which was really valuable to me in the end because I'm an impatient human being, as I've demonstrated this entire episode.
But then it's literally just understanding your guest, right? And how do you understand your guest better than knowing more about your guest? So this is the value of an online reservation system like CampSpot or RMS or Ashford, all the things, right? Is because when they book, you collect information about them.
Yep.
Where do they live? Whatever questions you're asking at the very basic level. What's their email address? What's their phone number? Those kinds of things. It's all data you're collecting that lives in CampSpot that helps you understand that guest better in the future. And if you're adding notes, maybe their interests or what they like or whether they ordered firewood, it's all there. You can do the same thing on your website. The more information you collect about your visitors and guests, the better. And it's not that it's a creepy thing that they don't know about. It's forms, it's chat, it's tying all those things together. When they fill out a contact form, you can take their name and you can funnel it into a CRM, which is customer relationship management, just like it's a list of people, right?
Yeah.
That's all it is, and information about them. But as soon as they fill out a contact form or a rally request form or a barbecue entry form or a online reservation or whatever that is, you take all that data and you update their record in your CRM, and then you can do all kinds of things with it in the future. You can literally, instead of sending out an email blast with your special to everybody who's ever stayed at your campground, you can then segment it and you can say, I only want to send that email blast because it's a 10% off deal on cabins to the people who've stayed with me in the last 2 years who stayed in cabins. And then all of a sudden your open rates are way higher. People are opening more of your emails because they know when they get your email, it actually is relevant to them.
It applies to them. Yeah.
Right.
It's something they're interested in.
Yeah. And the future is all about personalization. Like I was looking at for our website, this, Insider Perks, looking at ways to just welcome people we did that we're doing that a couple places. But
is it a secret?
For now it is, yeah.
Okay.
We'll tell later.
Okay.
But, greeting people by name, right? Like if you know who that person is because it tracks them on a cookie or they filled out a form or made a reservation before, you put a header on your website that says, "Hey, Paul, welcome back. It's nice to see you."
Yeah.
They're gonna look. Their mouth's gonna drop open. They're gonna be like, "That's cool."
And it translates back to what we were saying earlier about personalizing that interaction, that experience with them, and making it less kind of robotic feeling. It's not this automated I mean, it's automated, but it feels
Right.
a lot less automated when, you know, it's personalized and specifically targets them. Targets them is a bad word, but
It provides value to them is what it really does. It's just like,
absolutely.
and I want to let you finish your thought, but it's just like the ads that follow you around, right?
Yeah.
You get annoyed by, you will look at a pair of shoes and the shoes follows you around on CNN and Fox News and wherever else you're going, right? But you get annoyed by that because you probably already either purchased the shoes or you decided the shoes weren't for you.
Yeah, I don't want to buy those.
Right. But if the marketing or advertising company knows about you and has set up their tracking correctly to show that you already bought the shoes, they're not going to show it to you. Or if they know that you bought the shoes and they know you bought it a year ago, maybe they're going to show you
time for new shoes.
Updated, right. But the updated line of that specific shoe, like if it's very personalized to you and provides value, you're not going to hate ads. You hate ads because they're irrelevant to you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, things like pop-ups and things serve them to me, which I don't like. Like, I prefer a more strategic, well thought out way to deliver that information to me. So yeah, that personalization I think is incredibly valuable. It establishes a connection with these individuals that you just wouldn't. It's always been the argument against automation and the argument against technology is like making it less personal and less interactive and stuff. And I think there are some really unique tools coming down the pipeline that, you know, are addressing those specific issues.
A lot of them are already here. Like, remember what we did? I don't even think anybody even commented to me and noticed. Remember what we did for the Canadian conference where we put like at the top of every page, because it was a virtual conference, right? It was live from whatever city you were literally in right then when you were looking at the website, geotargeting.
Yeah.
So if you were in,
nobody commented on that too. I got so many comments on that. How cool it was.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like, I mean, and even if you were in the States, like live from Detroit, Michigan, live from Dallas, Texas, live from wherever, because it was like it was streaming in your browser in your house.
Right.
So little things like that. You can say like, we can't, you know, I mean, heck, you could even do it dynamically based on location, right? Like we're 22 miles away from Sedona, Arizona, or like whatever you're doing, right? Yeah. All of these things are possible. They're hard. They're not easy to implement, but that's why geeks like me exist. And I'm not the only person who can do it, right? And if you've got a marketing background, if you're technologically savvy, or if you feel like you can learn it, all of these things can be learned. You can pay for plugins, you can do all the things that I do. Yeah. But there's value in this. And if you can track the return on investment from it, do it.
Turning $1,800 into $49K doesn't hurt anybody, for sure.
Right. And I'm not saying that everybody gets that return on investment, right?
No, no, just using your numbers.
But even if you spend $1 to make $5, which is
absolutely
the lowest level we see on ads.
Well, and I mean, frankly, we're dealing with business owners here. They can understand that black and white brass tacks bottom line stuff, which I really think that's what all of this comes down to, is just understanding the connection between, you know, making this effort and choosing these types of advancements because of their impact to your business performance. And I think oftentimes there's a disconnect between how those are related.
No. And so it's just literally thinking in your imagination, what can I do, right? I mean, imagine like one of the things I'd love to do that I want to try to solve is like made a reservation, follow up, right? So let's say I am a customer, I want to make a reservation through CampSpot. I'm just picking on CampSpot, right? I make a reservation through CampSpot, then I all of a sudden know that person, because I've got website tracking, has made a reservation. I can feed that to all my other marketing tools. And then I can not only, obviously, CampSpot's going to send a receipt, but then maybe 2 days later, I can send a, hey, we're so excited for your upcoming visit.
Can't wait to have you join us.
And then 7 days after that, you know, if there's enough room, like, here's what you should check out, or here's a list of store supplies that we have. Somebody asked me the other day to set up an e-commerce store for their campground so they could sell t-shirts and stuff online. People will buy that stuff. Put all your stuff online before they get there. Here's a list of the camping supplies that we have. Do you want to buy firewood? Click here and pay me. You want to buy ice? Click here and pay me. It'll be on your site.
I'll have it waiting when you get here. Yeah, I think those are all really unique, cool ways to really impact the guest experience. which again, fundamentally, in my opinion, a lot of those things were kind of caused because of COVID and this requirement to remote check-in and pre-order and all these things, which will carry on despite COVID. I think there's tons of convenience. It's incredibly valuable to guests. They're maybe not all guests, but there are definitely a segment of the market who are, who will prioritize great service like that specifically.
Everybody prioritizes great service. I mean, it's all about value, right? That's all it is.
Right.
You just have to show them value. And so just like you send an email that says, if they booked a 30-foot RV site basic without a patio, if you have an open site in Camp Spot or whatever, send them an email that says you have 24 hours to upgrade at a reduced rate to a patio. And it might not even be a reduced rate, but you can say it is. Right. And then they click the button and you've got somebody in a patio site, and it's easier to fill a basic site because it's cheaper.
Yeah, there's all kinds of ways to be strategic. I think the biggest barrier for campground owners, and I say this stuff on the show all the time, is just time. Like the time it takes to sit in front of a computer and work through all of this stuff is monumental when you're also like running a team of staff and making sure all the things get done and mowing grass and whatever else needs to happen that day. So I think, it's another argument, obviously, for working with somebody like you who can really take a lot of that stuff off their plates. And also that I know for me as a campground owner, during the season, my creativity would get really tapped kind of midway through. By July or August, I was less motivated to like be super creative and do all kinds of cool stuff because I was tired and wiped out. And at that point, you're just kind of in survival mode and you're working 7 days a week and it is what it is. So using those outside resources keeps that freshness and also brings a different perspective. Like I said, I never went camping when I was a campground owner. So
you have now. Where's the last place you went camping?
Oh gosh, it's wintertime. So I suppose last fall. Yeah, here in Alberta, one of our provincial parks. Went camping. Yeah,
you went to a provincial park? You didn't go to a private campground here?
For shame. Yeah, I did go to a provincial park. They're very beautiful. I have visited many, many private parks. Come on.
All right, we'll let you skate on that one for now. But this spring in May, when it warms up, May is when it kicks into high season in Canada. When it warms up, we expect you to go to a private park and share your experience with that.
Yeah, sure. I happily will. I will. Well, I'm hoping there's more kind of ease of movement around here provincially, but we'll see.
There will be.
Yeah. Time and the fact that most smaller parks do not hire staff and are forced to do everything themselves. I think a good topic in the future is the mental health concerns of owning a park and how to bring in staff no matter how small you are. So we have done a mental health episode specifically for sure. It's been a while. I think it was kind of right around this time last year. So, I bring it up a lot because I vividly remember those years being so rewarding, but also, they could be incredibly draining. I do think being creative about how to have staff support and things like that in your park, even if your park is really small, are incredibly valuable just for your own kind of sanity and keeping the business running really efficiently. And, that fresh perspective stuff that we were just talking about, whether you're partnering with a company like Brian's or, you bring somebody fun on the front desk or running some events for you or whatever. That's good, fresh and stuff for your guests that are only going to help for sure.
Right. And just to pull out one of his things, like he's talking about, they don't hire staff and they're forced to do everything themselves. Like, I'm very cognizant of the fact that a lot of small park owners don't, and I'm going to say it and I'll explain it, don't think that they have enough budget to work with a marketing agency like me, for example, right?
Right.
And you don't at the beginning. Like I'm cognizant of that. Like I started my business in 2009. I didn't take out a bank loan. I had credit cards. I didn't have millions of dollars in venture capital. I bootstrapped the heck out of this thing and dime to dime, paycheck to paycheck, whatever. So I'm very cognizant of watching my budgets and all those kinds of things. But if you can start on, let's just use Google Ads as an example, right? If you can start on Google Ads and give yourself or me or whoever's running your Google Ads, right? It doesn't matter. $10 a day, $300 a month. If you can track it correctly and see that 300 turn into $6 or $9 or $12 or $1,500, then up it to 350, then up it to 400, and you can use this data. All of a sudden now you can see I had $300 in my bank account. Now I've got $1,500 in my bank account based on what I did. So now I've got the extra money between $300 and $1,500, an extra $1,200 that I can then reinvest into Google Ads. And then maybe I'm spending $1,500, and now I'm making $9,000 or $12,000 or whatever. Now I've got $10,000 extra dollars. So maybe now I can put more money into Google Ads here, but I can also take half of it and hire a staff member to help me around the campground. Because I know, I can see in the numbers, I know there's more money in my bank account and where it's coming from and why it's there.
Yeah, no, it's super valuable to realize it's very exponential like that. And I think, Michael's saying there's ways to bring in staff no matter how small you are. I think options like partnering with someone like Insider Perks is a creative way to alleviate a ton of kind of stuff off of your plate to free you up to do, maybe mow the grass.
Well, there's lots of things that do that, right? I mean, we talk about associations, right? CCRVC. You're a member of your association because they provide all kinds of resources and documents and time-saving things and discounts. And here's where you go for this, so you don't have to Google the heck out of it for 40 minutes. It's just time-saving things in general. Yes, marketing is one of those things because it happens to be hugely a time suck, right? If you don't know what you're doing. But it's one of many things. And so it's just literally understanding the value that each of these things brings you. And so you look at hiring staff, for example, right? It's going to cost me a lot of money to hire that staff member. But will it free up your time to allow you to do something else that maybe isn't trackable like Google Ads?
Right.
But that lets you do something that will improve the guest experience, that will cause more people to come to your park because they love the landscaping, or they love the fact that your pond is clean, or there's fish stocked in it now, or you've rezoned the slope around it so they can stand and fish on the bank. Like, you have to think about these things in long-term out, right? It's not all about right now. It's taking that risk as a business owner, calculated, educated risk, small risk. But understanding where it could lead.
And it can be tough to have that long-term vision, specifically in this business, I think, because, and maybe, in lots of parts of the States, this doesn't apply, but here in Canada, the season is really short. So, there's so many things to do today, to get done today. It's one of the greatest benefits to kind of using those fall, winter months to really make these big strategic decisions and think about, your 5-year plan or whatever, and the kinds of things you want to see in your business, because from May to September, it's harder to strategize about those things because you're focused on right now. I have an event tomorrow. I don't have enough staff. I need to mow 100 sites somehow between now and 3 days from now. And I'm one body. Like, it just, those really timely things tend to take over in the busy season. So I really, I know for myself, I really used those off months where those stretched, tough days weren't as much of a factor, and I could really focus on long-term planning, like Brian mentioned, the adding amenities or strategizing about the kinds of things I wanted to prioritize for myself, the kinds of tasks that, I felt like I needed to do, and where I could potentially seek support or staffing or whatever else in other ways.
All right. Well, we could probably talk about this for a while, but
a
little bit over. So anything else you need to say? Like, we didn't really cover anything that was happening in the news. There's a headline Friday I saw that Insider Bricks was offering multilingual websites. So there's our news.
Wow, that's exciting. I obviously here in Canada, that's incredibly valuable. I remember having tons of Francophone guests. So, having my website and service offering and all of that stuff we offered service in several languages, but offering French was incredibly valuable here in Canada. So, I think a lot of campgrounds would value a service specifically like that. And then I guess the only other thing I wanted to mention is CCRVC and Purified Systems are doing a webinar on Wednesday, on April 13th at 11:30 Eastern Standard Time. You can find registration links for that on our Facebook page. We're specifically covering the 6 best health protection practices for a safe and strong 2021 season. So we'll just kind of work going over with those guys, just strategies and protocols and stuff recommended to open your park kind of strong and ready for 2021 in the face of, still being in the throes of a pandemic, despite all of our best efforts. Here we are a year later, entering a second season, opening this way. I think a lot of areas in Canada specifically have, pretty specific outlines and guidelines about how they can open and have a good idea about that. But Steve and his team at Purified have some great suggestions about sanitization and keeping things clean and spotless, really instilling confidence from your guests that you're making every effort to make sure your property is safe.
When is that? How can they register? Just tell them again real quick.
Wednesday, April 13th, 11:30 Eastern Standard Time.
Tomorrow.
Nope, Wednesday. Today's Monday.
You said April 13th. Today's April 12th.
You're right. It is tomorrow. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I'm a day behind. Yes, tomorrow. April 13th. April 13th, 11:30 Eastern Standard Time. You can register via the Canadian Camping and RV Council's Facebook page. You should have, also if you're a member, should have received an email invitation last week. But you can also reach out to me at any time at cara@campincanada.ca, and I can send registration links your way.
Shameless self-promotion. I didn't even give out my email address. Okay.
I should have it on the screen.
Can we do that? Can we put that? All right. We're good though. Thank you guys for joining us for another episode. Am I sorry or glad that Quiggle didn't show up? I'm sorry Ben Quiggle didn't show up. I'm gonna just pick that one. No, we miss Ben Quiggle. We really hope he'll be back with us next week. I don't know how. I guess I didn't come back from my vacation yet, so it's possible that Quiggle never comes back either.
Yeah.
But hopefully he can figure out how to get better Wi-Fi. Join us next week. What are we doing next week? Do we know, or is Quiggle the keeper of that too?
We're doing luxury RVs. Sounds like some cool kind of manufacturers, going over some really neat model layouts and things like that. So I'm excited to see that and kind of the new developments, despite back orders and all kinds of problems getting any RVs in anybody's hands these days. These companies are doing some pretty cool, unique, exciting stuff.
Awesome. All right. Well, we will see you next week then on Monday. Appreciate you guys joining us again. Remember, we're available on a podcast. You can listen to us later, share that kind of stuff. And we will talk to you soon.